Give it up, baby. And I want to salute each and every one of you because the very fact that you decided to be here means you have decided to become part of the greatest tradition in the modern world, the tradition of a people who've known every kind of catastrophe, monstrosity, and calamity, of people who've been terrorized for 400 years, traumatized for 400 years, stigmatized for 400 years, but still teach the world so much about freedom. Freedom! I'm talking about a people who have been hated for 400 years and taught the world so much about how to love and what love is. All I need to do is turn on John Coltrane's Love Supreme and sit out. Mom and Dad, what's going on there? There's nothing but love. Include the silences between the notes. We could be James Baldwin's love story.
That's your boy? That boy, you sure is coming along. But what is that mother gonna say? Oh, no, sir. He's stupid, he's shiftless, he can't work, because I don't want you to sell him. If it's my daughter, I don't want you to breed her. So I denigrate them to protect them. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. We never unlearned it. We never unlearned that behavior, because I'm going to roll it back to 2018. We never unlearned it because we were told to get over it. We were told, you need to let that go. That's done. Because we never had the conversation, you see. So now let's roll it back to 2018. You have the black mother and the white mother, and you got Tim, and you got Trey. And Trey looks at his mom and he says, how come you can't be proud of me? Like she's proud of her son. Because you see, Trey has not learned the secret yet. And by the time Trey learns the secret, he's already been injured by it. Does that make sense? So when I talk about post-traumatic slave syndrome, it's not a philosophy. It's not theoretical, it's real. But we've never been given the permission to look at ourselves. You know how many of those there are. Those behaviors, everything from what we eat to what we believe it means to be who we are, is colored by our past. What am I but a reminder of my past? So the work is about healing, but you cannot heal what you don't understand. You got to look at it first. First it is to know, then it is to do. And we are, as a people, we as a nation, suffer a pathology of denial. A pathology of it. Now you notice I haven't advanced the slide. See, now there's no slide. So I'm going to forego the second example just because I know I don't have a lot of time. Again, I believe that truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues, and I believe that largely because, you got to keep up with a lie. You ever notice that when you tell a lie, you tell a lie to somebody, say, oh my God, she's going over to Daryl's house. I'm going to have to call Daryl. But Daryl don't know the lie. I got to call Daryl to remind him of the lie so he doesn't give me up. It's always easy to tell the truth because you don't have to keep up with the truth. But I want you to know that America's pathology is the lie. I'm going to read this statement. We need more light about each other. Light creates understanding. Understanding creates love. Love creates patience. And patience creates unity. I'm for truth, no matter who tells it. I'm for justice, no matter who it is for or against. I'm a human being first and foremost, and as such, I am for whoever and whatever benefits humanity as a whole. That's what Malcolm said. But that's not what you are taught about Malcolm. It's not what people project about Malcolm. And what I'm telling you is you've been bamboozled. You've been hoodwinked. I want you to know that you've been miseducated if you were educated in the American system, because the American system is designed not to tell you who you are. I have 4 degrees, 3 of them are advanced degrees. But my understanding of who I am did not come from any of those degrees. It came from my separate and intentional investigation into who I am. And if you don't look, they're not going to tell you. I want you to know. So when we look at those people upon whose shoulders we stand, just a few of them. You have W.E.B., who you will see him quoted throughout. He says, a system cannot fail those who it was never meant to protect. Fannie Lou Hamer, never forget where we came from and always praise the bridges that carried you over. I cannot say enough about Carter G. Woodson, who wrote The Miseducation of the Negro. Please read it. It will explain to you post-traumatic. And of course, Brother Malcolm, Harriet Tubman, and there Elizabeth Eckford, who was one of the Little Rock Nine that walked through all of the brutal assaults and insults to get the education that she knew she deserved. Those are some of the shoulders, but I would submit to you that there are shoulders much closer to you than those. And the shoulders much closer to you are your mom and your dad and your grandparents and those folks. Those are the first line of support. And we got to bring back that understanding and honoring those upon whose shoulders we directly stand. Dink Nash, say that.
Dink Nash.
Dink Nash. They called her Lucy. But she was from Ethiopia. And the Ethiopians called her Dink Nash, which means thou art wonderful. Now, when you hear Lucy, you think maybe she's from, I don't know, Baltimore. But you are not confused when you say Dink Nash, that she's not from around here. And that is precisely why you learned Lucy. Now let's unpack why they call her Lucy. This is arguably one of the most important finds in human history. She's the one upon whose shoulders all of us stand. It is her DNA, an African woman from which all others came. This is not confusing. This is not something that's debatable. But why did they call her Lucy? Well, they say that the Beatles' Lucy in the Sky was playing. They thought that was a good idea. Really? The most important find, did you name her after a Beatles song? Or is it that you didn't want people to know she wasn't from Boston? Maybe you didn't want people to know that the origins was African, of the oldest DNA we have. But I'm saying to you that unless you look, you call her Lucy too. Now this is not unknown. It's not like they don't know. The Ethiopian people, my daughter-in-law is Ethiopian, they had to fight to get the bones back to Ethiopia. They took her bones. They said, she belongs to us. But it's not unknown that these bones were from Ethiopia and that they named her Dink Nash. So why haven't we corrected that? Hidden truth in plain sight. W.E.B. said, one is astonished in the study of history at the recurrence of the idea that evil must be forgotten, distorted, skinned over. We must not remember that Daniel Webster got drunk, but only remember that he was a splendid constitutional lawyer. We must forget that George Washington was a slave owner and simply remember the things we regard as credible and inspiring. The difficulty, of course, with this philosophy is that history loses its value as an incentive and example. It paints perfect men and noble nations, but it does not tell the truth. So here's the truth I want you to really pay attention to. Because I would submit to you that it is this truth that is driving so much of the insanity about white supremacy and racism in this country right now. It is these numbers. So look very closely, and you will note, as you're looking at these numbers, that the majority of the world is a world of color. There's no doubt about that. And in fact, there's only one group of people whose overall numbers are shrinking greater than any other. Now, here's what we understand based on mitochondrial DNA, based on what we understand about human genetics, is that human beings are 99.99% the same. Mankind is one. We are one humanity. But you see, these numbers threaten folks. They get really afraid of these numbers because they fear their annihilation. I'm not kidding. I'm not being, hyperbolic here. I'm telling you something that's really true. So just to unpack that a bit for you, I'm not going to read all this, but I want you to understand what this is. In 1975, there were 3 mega cities in the world, meaning that these were cities that had 10 million people or above. That was 1975. Now we have 31 mega cities with at least 10 million people. You look at Tokyo, Japan, they have 38 million in one city. Okay. And most of them are in the developing world. The UN projects that 10 more will join the list by 2030, and all but one, Bogota, is in Africa or Asia. Look at New York. They barely made the cut. If you were 1 in a million, I want you to think about this. 1 in a million in China, there are 1,300 people just like you that are 1 in a million. Within 10 years, China will become the #1 English-speaking country in the world. And the 25% of the population in China with the highest IQ is greater than the total population of North America. And in India, they have more honor students than we have students. So I don't know what world people are talking about or thinking about when they say we are the world, save the world, love the world, because that's the world. In fact, when you turn on television, I mean, I grew up with 3 channels, ABC, NBC, and CBS. And the children were the channel changers. Joy changed channel. That's how that worked. And based on looking at that, I thought you just thought the world was white. You thought the world was white. And based on what we know on numbers, sheer numbers alone, I don't care what you turn on TV, you should have an Asian floating around somewhere. Just, walking through. Just based on numbers. But that's not what I saw, and that's not what you see. And in fact, I don't have time to digress into that. But the point here is that these numbers are real numbers. And for some reason, this is producing fear. So, recent book, 2017, Toni Morrison, nonfiction. It's called The Origin of Others. How does one become a racist, a sexist? Since no one is born a racist and there's no fetal predisposition to sexism, one learns othering not by lecture or instruction, but by example. So, just so that you can see, I'm not making this up. Coming out of the Oregon Territory, this is Samuel Thurston arguing here in this statement that we can't let the Negroes and the Indians get together. I know all black folks think they got Indian in them, but no. But the fear was black people gonna hook up with the Indians, have a bunch of babies, and kill the white people. That was the fear. So Oregon created the exclusionary acts that were meant for Chinese, anybody. You can't come in. This would sound too unfamiliar as it relates to people's fear today. So I'm going to ask you, I know a lot of people are videotaping me. I know, please don't do that. Now let me tell you why.